So this is your invoice dashboard in AutoLink. When suppliers send you invoices, this is the dashboard they'll appear on. So if we run through an example and we take a look at what a generic invoice would receive from a supplier would look like, you can see who the supplier is, the invoice date, the invoice number, the purchase order reference, the supplier item code and the descriptions, as well as the quantity, unit price, delivery address. You can also see the payment terms, as well as what the freight costs were, the GST and the total. So in order for us to receive this invoice in AutoLink, we first should look at this from the supplier's perspective. So somehow the supplier has to send us this invoice. And a classic example of this would be via email. So the supplier would send this to our generic accounts payable email address. Maybe they'd put a subject here with the invoice number, and then they would attach that invoice as a PDF. Then they'd send that through. So now that the supplier has sent us our invoice, we can go back to our point of view, or the buyer's point of view. So we go back to AutoLink, we take a look at our dashboard, we hit refresh. So now you can see that supplier invoice has been received in AutoLink. So when a supplier sends us an invoice to our generic accounts payable email address, AutoLink will instantly extract that document and place it in our invoice dashboard. So we click into this invoice, we click View. We can see that it's picked up the original document, and it's also been able to transform it into a digitized invoice. So if we compare this to the one we showed earlier. So if we zoom in, we can see that it's managed to pick up the invoice number, the invoice date, what that purchase order number was, the customer address and the shipping address, the supplier item numbers, as well as our item numbers, the descriptions, what the order quantities were, their unit price, as well as what the subtotal was, the GST and the total amount. So it's important to note that we can edit all of these fields. So for whatever reason, if we're not happy with them, we can go through and manually change them. So for instance, we could change the invoice number, we could select landed costs. Here we could select which account it should be charged to. But once we're happy with this invoice, we can go through and publish it. So invoice published in the ERP system. So now that the invoice has been published, it will either be routed for approval by the finance team, or potentially it won't need approval, and at that stage it will automatically create a bill in your ERP.